Looks like he ended up in the evening, so. I did not. I just. That's why I. Yeah, I mean, some is sort of.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. I. Oh my God. So it's on. And now
No, I don't. You know, like.
I was talking to. Can you find my phone?
Yeah.
He's like, what?
Almost there. Good. It's all very good.
Oh.
Show my fingers. You don't have to worry about that. I'm almost there. All this stuff on that. No. Yeah. I can just say, yeah. Small company behind, right? Yes. That's all this. I don't think. What you said? Distribution.
Yeah.
So you got some calculations.
Oh, okay.
And then we just before we start. We explain that how to involve the full council.
Yeah.
So we can get out there.
Stevie traveling 35 miles per hour because.
Now, that's not. Yes, you can see that trace line. Facts. What even mean? That was, yeah. I think it's Joe and. No, say something. That makes sense.
Good evening. I now call to order this Village of Hebron Council meeting. 6 p.m. on Wednesday. It is August 14th. Trying to get better for the meeting minutes. So, and if you would not mind joining me for the Pledge of Allegiance, stand and jury. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call please.
Mr. Wolf,
Here.
Mrs. Stoner.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Nauer.
Yes.
Mrs. Patton.
Yes.
Porter.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a quorum. So thank you visitors for attending this evening. If you've not already done so, please sign in and get a copy of the agenda. There will be opportunities to speak at two specific areas of the agenda this evening, in addition to special topics on the agenda. Minutes will be recorded and provided to council for your review. Meeting minutes are official once they are approved by village council by a majority vote. Today's minutes will be made available once approved and posted in this office, the post office, and made available online. Seeking a motion for approval of the July 10th council meeting. Minutes. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Stoner and a second from Councilmember Nauer. Any discussion? Roll call please.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Nauer.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner,
Yes.
Mrs. Porter. Mrs. Chapman.
Yes. Motion passes, and I'm seeking motion for approval of the minutes of the combined council committees meeting on July 17th.
So move.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Porter and a second from Council President Wolf. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Nauer.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Abstain.
Mrs. Stoner,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
It passes. The next item, I'm seeking approval for the minutes for the council meeting on July 24th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Council President Wolf and a second from Councilmember Porter. Any discussion? Roll call please.
Mr. Nauer.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Stoner.
Abstain.
Mrs. Carpenter, I'm sorry, Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mrs. Chapman.
Abstain.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes.
It passes. Thank you, Council. The next item on the agenda is related to each department in the village provides routine updates to village council and the public. Tonight, we will receive an update from the water department, with Superintendent Pickens.
Good evening. Did everybody receive a copy of my latest report here that I'm going to be very brief and summarize for the most part? Under facility operation, I just kind of wanted to make mention, I typically during my quarterly reports, like the council, on what we see trend wise with our water demand in our system and our production at the plant. And for the most part, there is an edit that I didn't, that I will fill you in on here shortly. But through the first two quarters of the year, we're starting to slightly trend up, more than likely because of the hot summer that we've experienced. You know, a lot of people are watering lawns, and some of the bigger factories are using more water for the cooling tower process. So the weather is probably biggest contributor to that slight increase. On August 5th, we reported our highest one-day production of 855,000 gallons. This was due in most part to the typical water demand in our system, but also we had two projects that were filling lines and equipment. One of which was the Free Point Ecosystems facility that's out on Milliken Drive. That's going to be the plastics recycling plant. They were filling a 300,000 gallon fire process water tank. And Lincoln County also was filling a replacement line in Harbor Hills, 6-inch pipe that was about 4,800 feet long. So our demand plus those two projects contributed to why we had such a large water producing day. I'd like to, recognize two of my staff members at the plant, Cody Sanford, he just celebrated his 1 year anniversary. And Mr. Rich Hone, has completed 9 years of service with the village. Ongoing projects. The expansion source water well number 7. Just a quick status, completed pump testing for the well. The well's been completely drilled. The screen's been installed. 2 different pump tests were conducted, an 8-hour step and then a 72-hour constant. The conclusion, as you can see in the summary, is it's a very high yielding well, meaning that we've got surpluses of water. They were pumping this well at 1,500 gallons a minute for 72 straight hours and barely come down to where we would have any sort of inclination of influence in the other source wells at our site. Does that make sense? We were monitoring our SCADA trends, because we have sensors that give us feedback on what the water level is in the casing. And believe it or not, well number 6 is closer, as the crow flies, for lack of better words, than any other well on our site. But we noticed a stronger, very slight, but stronger influence at well number 4, which is right outside the main entrance to the plant. Just goes to show that the geology, there must have been some sort of a more common thread between number 7 and 4 versus 6 and 7. Does that make any sense at all?
No.
So anyhow, one of the biggest updates that I'll provide is, the samples have been collected, the pump tests are done. The well driller has approached, V3, our engineers in the village, and they have proposed to install a supplemental screen inside of the screen in the ground. This device is called a MuniPack screen. And what this device will do is it will evenly distribute the vortex effect and slow the velocity of the water coming to the pump as it's being withdrawn from the ground. The purpose behind this is because, back to geology, we have a extremely fine sand seam 300 foot down. This sand is so fine, it reminds me when I look at it in a glass is sugar. It's very similar to sugar, it's extremely fine. The well driller is proposing to pay for the expense of this device, install it, because they didn't feel that they were holding up on their end of the contractual obligation to supply us with a high producing, high yielding, non-sand forming well. This will also be a pilot, study, because we have a very similar issue with well number 4. We've done some different piping configurations to mitigate the sand. Last time we had it cleaned, the well driller wasn't able to do what's called surge the well, which is where they actually take gravity force and move the water down in the casing to basically back flush the gravel pack and the screen. They weren't able to do much of that surging because of the fine sand that was coming back into the case. They were afraid they were going to create a sinkhole. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, for lack of better words, I guess.
Where will that screen be installed?
It'll be installed inside of the screen at the bottom of the well.
So it's at least the 350.
It'll be, let's see, it's 260, there's 80 foot of screen, so I believe it's going to be 80 foot tall. It'll sit inside of the diameter of the screen that's already in the ground.
And how far down is that?
260 plus. So it'll be at the bottom. It'll be attached to the inner walls Of the
They're gonna
screen
down
that's
and
gravel.
screen that at 250 more, or 260, I believe you said, 260 feet more or less.
Yes,
And that's where the sand, layer is.
yes. It's deeper than that, but it's going to spread that vortex velocity over 80 feet instead of over 10 feet. To keep the sand in the formation in the ground and not wash in is the point, is the purpose behind it. It's a screen inside of a screen. So, yeah, I mean, just in general conversations with the engineer, Stu Dykstra and V3's team, we're not gonna have any trouble getting a 1,000 gallon per minute rating from this well. In fact, they told us that if we wanted to get a 2,000 gallon rating from this well, we probably could get that. That's how much water we have available to us. Anybody have any questions about that?
When the, well is dug. And they can take a reading and said ever, it was producing X number of gallons for 72 hours. Does that give them a window on what the total amount might be drawn from that well?
Yes, that's how it's rated.
So it's rated by the potential extraction of the water.
Yes, physical extraction, that's correct. We tested it at 1.5 times of the rating that we were seeking to approve. So we wanted 1,000 gallons a minute was our goal, so we pumped it at 1,500 gallons.
And that can be regulated whether the demand goes up or decreases.
So this is just for testing purposes. Yeah,
Okay.
operational wise, that's a completely different animal. We'll be able to do things with instruments and controls and motor drives to increase or decrease the volume that we would want to pull from the ground. That makes sense?
Yeah. Geology always makes sense.
Yeah.
Cause you really can't argue with it.
That's right.
It was.
It's there, it's there. I included a couple screenshots. I know they're probably kind of hard to read, but just some examples of the GIS system as we're continuing to update and populate data into it, with the goal of creating a unified set or resource of our distribution and underground assets. This will be used for not only doing everyday things such as locating lines for people that are going to do excavation, to helping other departments or other entities plan. And it will be for us to also capital plan around. It'll help us integrate data from water models to prioritize what lines need to be replaced and even to what size we need to upsize or maybe they're adequate size. So yeah, this is going to be a very, very good tool once we get this fully functioning. It's fully functioning, but it's just missing pieces and parts here and there, just different data. Hydrants here, bounds here, you know, the new development in Lake Forest is not populated in there yet, so just things like that. The last couple of pictures or pages of the pictures is just to give an update on the Canal Road waterline extension. This is to the canal crossings development. Pretty much everything in the public side was extended. It's installed. We just need to await scheduling for the hydrostatic pressure tests, chlorination, and bacteriological sampling. Once all that is completed and acceptable, then we can move forward with, I guess, asking council to take ownership of. And I'll close very, very quickly on, the end of the month, a date to be determined. We will publicize this, but we're going to begin our annual fire hydrant maintenance and flushing program. Staff's been around, visited pretty much every hydrant and check oil, make sure caps come off, just the general things that kind of delay flushing usually. Something that we have to do. Which leads into my topic awareness. Just a quick reminder that it's not a matter of if we stir up the sediment in the water mains, it's when and when it will affect everybody. I just caution everybody to, obviously, if you notice discolored water, particulates, run it till the water clears back to normal. If it doesn't clear after a reasonable amount of time, please contact us. And we will be happy to assist. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. We have this time reserved on the agenda to hear comments from visitors regarding topics not listed on the agenda.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Tom Hart. I represent Pulte Homes. I did want to request and talk about something that's two items that are on the agenda, if that's okay. I wanted to, on your agenda tonight, are resolution 2411, which is the development agreement for the Lakeland Meadows site, and ordinance 2424, which is the rezoning ordinance for the Lakeland Meadows site. And Pulte is respectfully requesting the council consider waiving the third reading on the development agreement, resolution 2411. Because it's really essential that the development agreement and the rezoning match up time-wise. They're linked to each other and really critically important for both Pulte and the village to qualify the economics of the site and make sure we have a viable development that'll work for both Pulte and the village. So the simple request would be to waive a third reading on the development agreement and take action if council's consideration on both items tonight. Thank you.
Any questions from council?
So you're asking that the rules be waived?
Yes, ma'am, for the
That's
development.
essentially what you're asking.
Yes, ma'am, for the development agreement only. Rezoning this will be our sixth hearing on the rezoning tonight, total. But they are very tied together.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other visitor comments? Okay, thank you. Legislation, the first item is ordinance 2724. It's an ordinance to amend ordinance 2723 and ordinance 1224 to provide for adjustments of the annual appropriations for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. This is the first reading. And are you willing to speak to this a bit this evening to remind council what we're trying to accomplish here? I just want to make sure everyone understands why we're asking for this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. This is the amendment that we discussed in the last committee meeting with the new funds that they have set up and the Microsoft Project Fund and the other Community Initiative Fund. This appropriation amendment makes it able for me to move those funds back into the line items that they need to go to. So I would like to request that the readings be waived so that we can get that taken care of.
And as I'm thinking about this, I think of this as actually replenishing funds from external sources. So
Yes.
we've been depleting our internal funds and doing work, and now this allows us to replenish those funds. Council, any questions? I'm so sorry now that I've given you a chance to go back to your chair. Is it necessary, So we're looking to waive the readings, right?
Yes.
And it is
Yes.
declared as an emergency. Okay, sorry, thank you. So I am seeking a motion to suspend the readings on 27-24.
So many.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Councilmember Nauer and a second from Councilmember Carpenter to suspend the readings on ordinance 27-24. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Nauer,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, council. And now I'm seeking a motion to adopt ordinance 27-24.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion from Council President Wolf and a second from Council Member Stoner. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Porter,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Mr. Nauer,
Yes.
Stoner,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, council. The next item under legislation, we have ordinance 26-24. It's an ordinance authorizing the administrator and fiscal officer to enter into a contract with Brochus, Johnson and Griggs LLC without advertising for certain legal services for the village of Hebron, specifically for planning and zoning and for other matters or other related matters as necessary. This is the second reading. The next item is resolution 2411. It's a resolution authorizing the mayor and the village fiscal officer to enter into a development agreement with Pulte Homes of Ohio LLC. This is the second reading, and this is also the legislation that Pulte has asked us to consider waiving that third reading so that it is aligned with ordinance 2424, specifically the zoning. So I'm seeking a motion for council to suspend the readings.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilmember Nauer and a second from Council President Wolf. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter,
No.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner,
Yes.
Mr. Nauer.
Yes. Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you, council. The next item is to adopt resolution 2411. I have a motion from Councilmember Nauer and a second from Council President Wolf. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stoner,
Yes.
Mrs. Chapman,
Yes.
Mrs. Porter,
No.
Mr. Nauer,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
The motion passes. The next item is ordinance 2424. It's an ordinance to amend the village zoning map and rezone parcels known as Canal Road, Hebron, Ohio, for 3025, and more specifically identified as auditors parcel numbers 075-330786 00.000. Also parcel number 075-330786 00.001. Also parcel number 075-347010-00.000. Also parcel number 075-347268 00.000. Also parcel number 075-348648 00.000. And finally, parcel number 075-3492020 This is the third reading. I'm seeking a motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Council President Wolf and a second from Council Member Carpenter. Any discussion?
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner,
Yes.
Mrs. Chapman,
Yes.
Mr. Nauer,
Yes.
Mrs. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you, council. Next, we move into council action items. The first item is dealing with the July 24 banking reconciliation. I'm seeking a motion to acknowledge receipt and review of the July 24 bank reconciliation. Second, I have a motion from Council President Wolf and a second from Council Member Stoner. Any discussion? Hold on, please.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Nauer.
Yes.
Mrs. Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter,
Yes.
Thank you, council. It passes. The next item, we have a planning and zoning recommendation to council to set a public hearing. And I was wondering if you would be able to address that for us. Thank you.
Good evening. You should have received the notice of decision from the Planning and Zoning Board. We are asking that we set the public hearing on September 25th if council chooses to do so based on our requirements for posting and those different items. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
What was the date again, please?
September 25th.
Thank you.
Any questions? Would that be before a regular meeting or
Um,
6 or 5?
Ultimately up to you, but maybe 5:30. Or I will say we did receive some feedback about 5 PM and people not being able to attend. Just want to make sure you have that when considering it. But ultimately, it would be up to you.
And someone had asked me about, should we be doing it the exact same night that we're voting on it? Is there any guidance that you can provide to us on that?
Based on our ordinance specifically for PRD, that's appropriate, to hear that testimony and then
And
decide that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So I'm seeking a motion to set a public hearing for September 25th at 5:30.
So moved.
Okay,
You go 5:30 or zoning, when they have public hearings, they usually do the same time. Their meeting starts at 6, their public hearing 6, and they go straight into their regular meeting. Would that work for this? Or do you think it should be earlier?
okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Sorry, I'm just trying to
Yeah, keep it straight.
watch my P's and Q's, thank you. So we could, I would entertain a second, and then we can amend it if we need to.
Second?
Thank you.
Yes, second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. The motion is from Councilmember Carpenter, a second is from Council President Wolf to have the meeting at 5:30 on September 25th. And then discussion.
Yeah, instead of like, if it's at 5 and you take a break, then our meeting starts at 6, if you just make the public hearing at 6 and whenever it's over, just go straight to our regular council meeting. Would that be easier? And it's a time that people know 6 o'clock.
But the persons who come for 6 o'clock council meeting could be delayed if the 5:30 maybe takes longer. Generally, it doesn't, but it could. So is this a real problem? And if it is, maybe just have it on 2 separate nights. Is there anything magic in having it the same night?
Well, that's what I just asked.
Yeah, I don't see what that problem could be,
Well,
to have it on 2 separate nights. If I understand that people can't make it because they're probably not off work yet, or there's commuting or whatever, and I can understand that's easy enough. But, so given their own time, it's peak 6 o'clock.
So.
A particular night.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm answering the question that Councilmember Chapman has. So Councilmember Chapman, you would be perhaps would want to consider making a motion to amend the motion on the floor. And that amendment would be to set the public hearing for 6 and the council meeting immediately thereafter.
Are we still in discussion?
Yeah.
unless she makes the
I don't
motion.
see, but I don't understand how that is going to help. The people on the council are going to be delayed. Okay, possibly. You know, how much pushback have we gotten from that overlap in time? One person, two persons, I'm not saying that that's not important, but to change a whole schedule for the council, for the community to know that the council meets at 6 o'clock. It does not meet at 6:15, 6:18, 6:45, which I see the potential of that happening. Not likely, but the potential is there. So that delays this body.
It's the same body, I think, for the public hearing as for the meeting.
I don't understand exactly why we would want to change that, because something that's been set in the community is pretty difficult to change without notice.
And Councilmember Chapman, and I want to make sure I understand the motivation. Is the motivation that if it's a 5-minute meeting, then we're not waiting
We're not
25
sitting
minutes
around
to
waiting
proceed?
for-
Right, so just to clarify
And
what
then
your
it goes
intention
directly
is.
into the 6 o'clock, yeah.
Okay, so do we have your motion on the floor and do we have,
Yes, I think motion, yes.
We have a motion to amend,
Amend.
you're awaiting a second.
okay, so,
I still have questions.
okay,
Okay, so the first motion was what time?
5:30.
And you're amending to 6. So it's already going from 5 to 5:30, so that's giving a half hour for the public meeting and then for the council. Okay, I'm just clarifying times.
We still don't have a second, so perhaps this amendment.
Oh, we had a second.
Did we have a second?
No.
No.
A second for 5:30, we can have a second for 6.
If there's no second,
No.
motion to amend dies.
Guys, okay, so we are back to a motion and a second already in place for a 5:30 public hearing before the 6 PM on September 25th. And I am making sure there's no further discussion and roll call.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mrs. Stone.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a request for an alley to be vacated within the village. And was that mailed out today from Greg's, just today, right? So, yeah, there was a memo that was sent out for a way for council to possibly consider how these go in the future. Right now, my understanding from the memo, we don't really have anything in place to really direct that. Please.
So we do have a process, and our process so far has been reviewing that address in the particular alley that we are considering vacating. I share that with our administrator as well as the superintendents to see if they have any concerns as to why we should or should not consider vacating. And then based on their recommendation, we have taken it to planning and zoning. I can't remember off the top of my head what month that was, maybe June or July. No, July, we didn't have a meeting, so it must have been June. There was a bigger question that came up just about how we should be considering this in the future. I'll let the mayor talk about that specifically. But really, working with Mrs. Ryan, she's looking for a resolution on this or guidance on how to move forward. But then, of course, as these requests continue to come in, we want to make sure we're on the same page and handling that business the way the council would like us to. Thank you.
I have one question for you. Is it marked alley on the
Auditor site.
auditor site?
Yes.
Okay, because there used to be walkways down through there,
Mhm.
and the same as over on Canal Road.
This particular situation, which won't be like every situation, is the alley in question is the
Right.
owners on both sides of it.
Yeah,
Which
and
makes
she
it a
runs
little
right
bit more
into the
convenient.
fire.
Yes,
Correct.
and then, one of the alleys, were vacated and, Mrs. Ryan actually found that record with the auditor's office.
Okay.
And that's how she discovered that this one had not, and then we did a little research internally.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
For the material that we were issued, it looks as though you just can't decide that you're going to vacate it. And it seems as though there's steps that have to be adhered to. And, over the years, I've seen certain things happen in vacating. You have to remember that you're never going to get it back. Okay, let that sink in for a second. And if there's any, utilities that run in that alley, and I don't know that there are or are not. But you have limited access for vehicles, which could be municipal vehicles. Because essentially you're turning public property into private property. And I would hope that would not be a trend. You have to consider whether or not it's something that you really want to do and to set a precedent. Because you're, like I say, you're never going to get it back. And it's a gesture that the village, in my opinion, needs to be very careful with how they distribute village property.
Thank you. Just to confirm, you have confirmed that there are no utilities through that space, right?
One more other comment if I can. Yes, all the superintendents have reviewed it. We've reviewed it on the GIS and I spoke to Administrator Chen about it as well. One thing that is kind of deep into this memo and the reason that has prompted this discussion is exactly your concern, Council Member Porter, and the piece that Mr. Griggs really wanted us to consider, and we have to consider every time we consider one of these situations, so it's gonna be different each time, is from our perspective, the benefit to give away land essentially, is the liability and the maintenance piece. In some situations, it's not going to make sense, and others it will, especially just the size of the alley, the access, all of the things that you mentioned, absolutely.
Thank you. And I think some of that concern comes out of our discussion at planning and zoning because I stated my concern about giving away land and giving away essentially our residents' property. And one of the things that I think you and Pete talked about quite significantly was if we do not vacate it, then are we going to go mow that all the time? And are we going to start caring for it? Whereas right now it's essentially surrounded and being cared for by the adjacent property owner.
Are there any dimensions available? I don't see it. In here, do you know how many feet we're talking about?
I don't know the exact feet, I apologize, and it should have been an exhibit with the attachment, I can go and print one out. But no, I don't have it with me right now, but I'm happy to print out an exhibit real quick, I don't know what the measurements will be. When you see the layout, you'll see it's, the same property owner on both sides, which is pretty unique in these situations. I shouldn't say unique, just, we don't get that lucky all the time.
Less than 30 foot wide.
Okay,
Less than-
there we go, less than 30 foot.
30 foot wide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
less than 30, if 2022, give or take. Was a fair market established.
That work out.
And probably,
Don't get it back.
Could you please speak into the microphone? I'm sorry, I said, could you speak in the microphone? That way the council can hear you.
This is kind of a side issue that you have the diagram.
So council, this is labeled as an action item insofar as I'd entertain a motion to address this issue directly, this specific request. We could also address the issue, the larger broad stroke issue.
Yeah, are we addressing just one or all in general?
That's actually at your discretion. So I'm looking for, at least someone to state a position so we can kind of figure out where we are and then move forward from there.
Can I say something?
Of course, please. Please state your name and your address. Thank you. And speak loudly so everyone
Sure.
can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, hi Wes. My name's Jeannie Ryan and I live at 118 Macon Street. And I just wanted to kind of clear, just in case anyone had questions, make it a little bit more clear on how the property looks. So if you're looking at the property, you have lot 194 all the way to the right. And 195 has been put together as one lot. That's where the house sits on. And then there was a vacated alley done. There's an ordinance for that between 195 and 196. That has been vacated. And then the next lot over is 197 and 198. So between 197 and 198 is the alley in question that we're talking about. So it's a really nice big field, but right down the middle of it is what I'm asking for. So I just wanted to clear up kind of, if you could get a visual of why, I can't put a fence up, I can't put it together and sell it, I can't do anything with it. So that's why I'm asking to have that alley vacated as well.
Is it appropriate to ask what you might be considering to do with that property? Is it inappropriate? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know at this point, but my hands are tied to do anything with it, so.
How long ago did you acquire the two properties that are adjoining this?
I purchased it all at one time in, beginning of June. So I've been there 2 months.
And then we have the same issue on the one down with the Kaiser Taylor. Is that the one you're talking about too? That's another alley, according to our diagram. Or walkway in between the properties.
That's a different property owner.
Well, I know, but we're looking at the same issue that goes right through their property. I mean, it's a common issue.
Oh, I think if we were to look at the village,
It's very common all over. And we need to be looking at lots of requests.
Any other questions for me? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We reserve the right to change our mind.
I'm here.
Okay. So council, again, I'm interested if anyone is interested in making a motion on this specific matter at hand, or if you want to make a motion about examining this topic in general. Or if there's no appetite to address it at all.
I think it's gonna be common all over town. We need to address the main issue before we make a decision on one issue.
It would be different.
You think it will be different?
Yeah,
I mean,
this like goes right into the firehouse, so where's it gonna go?
yeah, well, this one does too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's one between my house that looks exactly like that. I mean, they're all over town. And if we grant one, and then it's gonna snowball down the way that a lot of people, so I think we should have our ducks in a row before we say yes or no to one. So how we're gonna deal with the one, we need to figure out how.
That's what I said about precedent.
Yes, we need to set standards of how we're gonna address them all.
I did speak to Mr. Griggs specifically about process with this, and that's when he weighed in about having a clear process and how you evaluate the situation. But every situation with this will be different, and that council has the right to make the decision based on the circumstances. So, for instance, information from the superintendents about right-of-way, potential expansion or use for that property, say that, you know, part of the property is something that we plan to utilize, it's listed in our comprehensive plan, that would be reason to say, no, we do not have interest. His advice is consistency in the process, so that it's very clear that they know we send the property, it's reviewed, and then we make a decision based on that. It goes to planning and zoning, the recommendation one way or the other comes to you. And he seemed very comfortable with that process and how it's done in other municipalities as well. But he was very clear that if we handle this situation one way, the process is important, but the decision, we have the ability to make that decision each time we have the circumstance come in front of us.
And the memo that we received is language he would recommend we consider using.
Correct. He has a sample, I think it's on the very back page that he was provided.
So it's the sample ordinance that we might consider. One is by petition and the other is a direct vacancy by council. But council member Chapman, are you making a motion that we perhaps
Adopt the sample ordinance, or is that
have people reviewed it already? So perhaps we put this on the
table for next meeting?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to vote appropriately, at least according to my vision. Because this is the first time I've heard of it. And the first time I'm seeing this information for this go round. And I would be, not easily convinced that this is what we want to do. So it takes, it's an important step that we have to think about giving away public property.
yeah, please.
If I may weigh in,
Please.
presently, under state statute, there is a process. And it's one of two ways. It's either on petition of the property owner, which I don't know that that's formally,
She made a formal request in
Okay.
front of planning and zoning.
okay, so that has been done. Or alternatively, council can do it on its own motion. I think the basis of the memo from Attorney Griggs is to give more criteria, more consistency, and a specific process, because the statute is general. He said, his recommendation is that we adopt an ordinance, or at least consider it, to provide greater certainty in the process and hopefully outcome. So, to everybody's point, whether we act on this or not, now, the other issue is, do we want to adopt a process? And I don't know that we're there now, everybody having just received this in the past day or so, or even presently. So that's something maybe at combined committee meetings ought to be addressed.
I believe at the last zoning meeting, we even said we need to review all our process as it is, so this needs to go on the list of things we need to look at.
Well, so this, if we adopt this language, though, that would be adopted directly by council. Yeah.
Yes.
I would care to make a motion. Given the fact, not on the adoption of an ordinance. But given the fact that we have a landowner who is properly petitioned, who owns property on both sides. And that landowner came to us and we haven't had the ducks in a row to do that. I would make a motion to approve the vacancy of this one. Providing that we address the issue as council on the ordinances for future vacancy requests.
I second that motion.
Okay, so to restate, we have a motion from Councilmember Carpenter and a second from Councilmember Nauer that we allow this vacation of the alley for this specific location based off of the petition or the request that has been submitted. And, any discussion on that?
I have a question. There's lots of things in the proposed, whether they pay or not pay or that. So our current one is just releasing it? Is that what you're saying, is just release it without?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roll,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Chad,
No.
Mrs. Coleman.
No,
The motion passes. And council, we will add this to a future combined committees meeting agenda to review that documentation in depth so that we feel we've got our arms around the process more clearly. Thank you. The next item is a trick or treat event. Would you be willing to speak to that? Thank you.
All right, on a lighter note, as you are aware, the Licking County Foundation provided us with a grant for our community events and initiatives. Our committee has been discussing potential events in the village that will help bring the community together. And one of the suggestions was after trick or treat or Baker's Night, having something at the park involving a DJ and food trucks and then potentially a bonfire. Given the situation that we're considering a bonfire, we want to make sure that we come to council and address any questions you might have and seek your approval for that. Again, there would be no cost associated to the village, be through the, aside from the funds that we have that's associated for these events. With that too, there's a second phase. I know it's not traditional for the village to have a rain date. If we would be coordinating these different aspects of the event, we would ask that there is a rain date. So doing some research with Clerk Furby, we did see that Thursday, October 31st would be a good night for trick or treat. And with the rain date being Saturday, I believe November 2nd. I have confirmed even prior to starting a lot of these different events, how that impacts insurance. And I've worked with CFO Morgan on that to make sure that our liability is kept under control and that those things are in place moving forward. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
You just said park, which park?
Oh, Canal Park. I apologize.
And that park's chosen because of the visibility? Or?
That's centric to the village, given the circumstances of the evening.
has the 31st been set as that night? I mean, that trick or treat night, whatever it's called.
No, we'll ask you.
So this is in addition to trick or treat?
It's right after. So trick or treat, if that ends at 7, I'd have to look back.
Okay, so you're saying one is piggybacked onto the other.
Correct, correct. So the idea,
That would be a Thursday night.
correct.
So who's gonna fuss about Friday the night? Is that gonna be a school night?
The idea is that the people that are participating in trick or treat will then go straight to this event, especially as families, when they're trying to get the kids out in their costumes, doing trick or treat. The last thing they have time for is dinner sometimes, so we'll have the food trucks there available, just keeping the celebration going and drawing from the people that we have already actively participating in the village that day.
And the funds for this is gonna be underwritten by, it's a gift.
It would be in the grant that we received from the Licking County Foundation for our events initiatives.
And it's anticipated that would be fully funded with this, or is there some way that the village is going to recoup its expenses, and there will be expenses involved with that?
Well, we have $5,000 in the account right now. I'm anticipating, the food trucks will be a free piece. There may be some essential costs to the bonfire itself. And then, the DJ will have a cost, which I'm assuming will be a couple $100, which will all come directly from this grant or fund.
Ruby, is this something that you're saying it will happen after? It won't be during?
No. So it concludes at 7. We don't want to take anyone from the houses and participating with trick or treat. That is at 7 or 7:30.
Is there a way, I'm sorry, Stacy. Is there a way to just have one event so that the neighborhoods are not, the solicitation for candy can be eliminated at the home level and the party be taken over to the park? And that would be the community event. Because otherwise you're getting two things going.
Well, one will conclude and then the one will start. So at 7 PM, I don't know if it's 7 or 7:30, I apologize, that we said it 5:30 to 7. So 7 PM, the trick or treat door to door stops and then the event will start at Canal Park. So hopefully getting them away from the residential areas as soon as trick or treat is over. Any other questions?
So to restate, you're looking for a motion that trick or treat be scheduled for October 31st, 5:30 to 7.
Yes.
Immediately followed by an additional event at Canal Park funded by Licking County Foundation, which would include.
Funded by the grant that they've already gifted us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That would include, a DJ, possible bonfire, and, food trucks.
Correct. With a rain date on the following Saturday.
Thank you, with the rain date the immediately following Saturday at the same time.
Yes.
Okay.
I just have a question. There are residences there. The noise level will probably affect them. I wonder if that is going to be a factor.
The goal would be to wrap up with that event within probably an hour, hour and a half, nothing going past 9
Beyond
PM.
that, beyond a normal time.
I don't think it'll be any louder than the softball game.
Yeah. Very good point.
Do we have the dates from surrounding communities for the?
Not a lot of them have been set, but Clerk Furby and I, we did some research about some of the things that we've been seeing on social media, what has been done last year to feel very confident that that will be the case. If for some reason we find that no one is doing their trick or treat and we're going to be welcoming all of Licking County, we will absolutely come back to council and let you know and ask for a change, because I'm not trying to get into that either.
That's gonna happen.
Yeah, we will do our best to prevent that.
I would like to make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Stoner, a second from Councilmember Carpenter, Capper.
These are very similar.
Been killing us right here. A second from Councilmember Chapman. Any discussion?
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Stoner.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Nally.
Yes.
Mrs. Chapman.
Yes.
Mrs. Porter.
As you can tell, I'm not too excited about this whole thing, but I'm also thinking that we can experiment and see what happens. But, I think it'll be real interesting to see how this works out. I'm even more interested to find out how Friday at school works out.
That's not our jurisdiction.
Is
that a yes or a
I'm glad
no?
to hear that. Yes, I'll go with it the first time. I hope that this is an annual event that we can vote on each year, assuming that there's money. And once the money from the grant is blown, it's gonna be hard to raise money again. And we may not be successful in getting a grant again.
Thank you, council. I'm sure passes. Thanks. Okay, the next item under council action items is park rules. Would you like to speak to that?
Absolutely. This is the action that we're asking the council to draft the legislation to amend the rules in the park or village owned property. Staff have presented some draft language to the Public Works Committee in the last 2 meetings. And we had this conversation, and the Public Works Committee recommend that this to be taken to the council for to direct the solicitor to draft the language for consideration in the next meeting. The current park rules that we have was adopted in 2000. There's 1 page. even though it has covered a lot of topics. But right now, we're looking at dealing with the different issues. For instance, there are people sleeping in the park. We don't have the regulations. We don't have any rules to govern that. We don't have any govern, when you have, we have the trail, what kind of animal controls that you need to have. We don't have it right now. So we're trying to, modernize the regulations to deal with the different, activity that we're seeing in the park. So we're asking the council to direct the solicitor to draft the legislation for your consideration in the next meeting.
So this is all parks, not just Evans.
That's correct. All city parks and city-owned property.
So that's under the Evans Foundation. Do we can make the rules over there now?
We, based on the agreement, the village can make the rules as long as it's open for public and recreation purposes.
So you won't be able to camp on the green anymore.
As already.
Unless council okays that.
Then I would move that we direct the solicitor to draft the legislation necessary to move forward.
Are you guys want copies of it first? Because I know the Parks Committee saw copies, but the rest
I
of
can-
it.
This is drafting legislation. It will come before council with the legislation language and the rules as well. So you'll have ideally 3 readings. Do I have a second? I'll second. Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Carpenter and a second from Councilmember Stoner. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Nauer.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion passes. The next item is the stormwater utility.
This item was presented to city council back in 2022. It was a study that was commissioned by the village staff to look at how we can address ongoing stormwater issues. But there is no designated funding source for it. So at the time that the village staff and the village administrator, along with the mayor at that time, looking at, can we set up the stormwater utility assessment program? So all properties in village will be assessed according to the impervious square footage. So that's why the idea is we will have a funding source to deal with the stormwater issue. Or we can use the collection assessment as the city share when we are applying for state or federal fundings. Because right now, there is no money set aside just for the stormwater. It comes out from a public works in the operation. So this will allow the funding to be used on the village-wide stormwater issues. And the Public Works Committee, and also we reviewed this in the last couple of meetings. They certainly asked a lot of good questions. But this is the things that are already in the motion starting in 2022 that we need to start looking at finding the funding source to address the stormwater issue within the village. So I'm asking council to direct the legislator, solicitors to draft the legislation for the formal consideration by village council.
Make a motion.
And second.
I have a motion from Council President Wolf and a second from Councilmember Porter to draft legislation regarding the stormwater utility. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Porter.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner.
Yes.
Mrs. Catton.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion passes. The next item is the administrator's report.
I have 3 items to provide you with updates. At the last couple of meetings, I mentioned to you, we had some issue with the final clarifier number one at the water reclamation facility. Finally, we had a contractor working on that, and they should be finished the repair work by the end of this week. The second one is that you have received all the reports from the consultant that we retained doing the assessment on the old Hebron Elementary School. So I would like to use the next week's council combined meeting to have that conversation, so you can make a decision at the regular meeting, because there's a deadline we have to meet, whether we are moving forward or nothing at all. So we need to make a decision by the end of this month. So I will ask you to be prepared to talk about the elementary building. The last item I have is we are getting more and more the development coming in. And at the same time, there are a lot of different technology or approaches dealing with the streets, dealing with the intersections. This is one of the federal initiatives called Safe Streets to All. One of the innovation ideas is called a roundabout. I'm sure you have seen that in different places. But what I'm hoping is that I can get some experts to come and share their experience with you, and you can, based on those information, you can make your own decision. But I think the idea is that there are things coming out. I think we need to continue to get this kind of updated information, so we're educated, so we're informed, so we'll make a better decision when the application comes through.
Where's this roundabout gonna be?
We do not have any specific. One of the location that we're looking at possibly is Canyon and Red Beach, but that is further down the road. We do not have any specific. That is a potential site. But it doesn't mean that we are not looking at other locations as well. So I just want to put this out. So we will have some information or some experience or practices out there that we can learn, or we can disagree, those kind of things. That's all.
And just the reason why I ask is I'm assuming, seeing that Main Street is an all alternate for I-70, that there probably will not be one going down Main Street.
Might be too limited in terms of spacing. Again, we have not done anything, it's just something that we are contemplating, but I just want to make sure we have those topics out there so you are fully aware and informed.
Just to probe a little deeper on that specific location of Canyon and Refugee. So the team had looked at that. It was actually recommended that we seriously entertain that. I was concerned because the last time council talked about this, nobody was really supporting it, I think was a fair thing to say. But when I articulated my concern, the team said, okay, we can claw that back and consider something else. And the alternative recommendation for safety is to actually make Canyon the non-stopping flow of traffic and introduce stop signs on Refugee, which my concern, I don't know, maybe PD has a much better perspective on this, but when you change something like that, that's going to be a hard habit to break for a lot of people. Whereas changing the entire structure right away gives visual cues that something has changed. So I'm just putting that out there as well as we're deliberating and considering this. We're seeing more of them, and the statistics again and again and again indicate how significantly it reduces crashes. I don't know if you want to add anything. No, I don't want to put you on the spot. I just don't want to not give you an opportunity to add to it. So, yeah.
I'll add something on Canyon and Refugee. You'll have to bring it up at least a foot, if not higher, because it floods. When we get the floods, it floods. So you might want to look at that too.
Thank you. So were you looking for a specific, we weren't looking for a specific.
No, I'm just sharing this information with you, and I would locate some traffic engineering professionals, and they can come in and share information with you. It's really educational purpose for all of us.
But certainly as you're speaking with residents, it's an opportunity to have the dialogue and get their temperature on it.
That's all I have.
Although I've certainly had people tell me they're never driving downtown.
They're never doing well.
They're never driving downtown Newark ever again because of the roundabouts. That's a long time to say never, but
I kind of like them downtown.
they're attractive. And it certainly makes navigating it much easier. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item we have is, council member reports, and this is an opportunity for each council member to share a report of anything new or open issues or concerns with the body. We will start with Council President Wolf.
I really don't have anything.
Thank you. That was easy. That was easy. Councilmember Stoner?
Yes, could you tell me about, I know on Canal, for them to pave that, they're waiting for that to settle, but are they gonna be, they need to fill that? It's, I mean, I have to go like 2 miles an hour of that.
Yeah, we've been asking the contractor whenever the gravel is disappearing or getting,
It's gone.
Yeah.
So,
then they need to go fill back up. The timing that they are operating is that they are going to pave their parking. So they will be doing the same thing with the parking along the street. We're looking at maybe a week or 2 from today.
but can we
Yes.
put some gravel in
Yeah,
there?
we can add
Okay,
that, absolutely.
that'd be great. I've just, myself driving and other people,
Sure.
I've heard complain about.
Have them go tell, have CJ go tell them. That's their
We would do that.
project.
Yeah, we would do that.
Thank you. And then, I want to thank, Director Brittany for this idea of the trick or treat. I completely get it I mean, when you're done trick or treating, your kids are hungry, you're hungry. It's a great idea. So I appreciate that. Was that your idea?
No, I don't think, I think it was Kyle's in Public Works, and we've just kind of grown on it a
Yeah,
little bit.
I think an
so.
awesome idea. And I would also like to thank the mayor for her Facebook videos, informing residents on different topics. It's very helpful. I've had friends and neighbors comment on your videos and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Arthur.
Yeah, I'm along the lines to the trick or treat, and I would like to add my portion to it. Question the ability to maybe even expand it for bounce houses. I'll make a $200 donation to it, so we don't have to use that much other money for the funds.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you. Councilmember Nauer,
I have,
thank you.
The only thing I have is back to the Canyon Refugee Road, and safety. Has anything come along with guardrails along Refugee for that huge ditch?
Yeah, that was part of the design. They're gonna look into that. To address the safety issues. Yep.
I have nothing. Okay, thank you, council. The next item is the mayor's report. I wanted to just make sure that council understands the intent with this concept of an overflow channel. There is a lot of chatter online about it being detrimental. And so I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask any questions you have, so you can engage residents with full confidence. But the intention of this is so that we can more readily draw water away from homes, not to flood people's basements, not to make people suffer more. We can continue with what we're doing now and continue to get the results we have, plus worse, because we're seeing more extreme weather. Or we could be proactive, and if developers are going to develop, why not work with them to create methodologies for that water to be siphoned off and redirected away from residential properties? So I just want to make sure Number one, that council has actually looked at the plans where we are exploring these ditches that essentially are creating a space for the water to go away from not just the new properties, the new residences, but from existing residences. And then also make sure that council understands that continuance around existing village property. If you don't support it, we really need to know that. And I want you to feel like you have the information you need to speak with full confidence about this, because I don't want people to be afraid. This is a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of talent that's being poured into this. And it's critical that we take their request seriously when all of us have campaigned. Who has not been asked about flooding? So all that to say, if you do not understand exactly what's happening there, we will get you answers. Even if we have to translate it from engineer jargon into English that we can speak with residents about. So don't be shy if there's any part of that that does not make sense.
I believe that that's a good idea. We need to, Stephen tried to explain that deal with the retention pond, and I think was over everybody's head. Anyway. I think maybe if we get some charts and everything to explain that a little more, and I think you were meaning existing properties, helping existing properties get rid of the water. I think a lot of people are under this idea that it's going to take care of the Licking River flood, and that's not the case. I think putting these ponds in for these new housing developments, it's actually going to help everybody around. It's not going to hinder like everybody's thinking.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to actually detain that water so it stops rolling off of that acreage into adjacent properties.
And then some.
And you also gotta look at who's gonna take care of them down the road. Because it's just like out there at the wetlands we have now, it's all filling in. If you go out there now, you can see where it's silted all in. And I think if you go down here to the one by the bypass coming from, I call it Dominion Homes, I guarantee you it's filled in there because of all the unused land there, it's just built up.
You're right, and I believe last year that was discussed that Cody was supposed to go in and dredge that pond.
It never happened.
Well, and that's under that land or the homeowners association, so
Okay.
we really don't have a lot of control over it until it starts flooding up.
I think they're looking for clarification on that. So somebody knows that there's a hot potato being passed. We're trying to figure out where it is in that dialogue. But that is absolutely on the punch list. It's absolutely imperative for that close out. No, I'm glad you mentioned it. That way you know, yeah.
Also, Kroger's is filling in again too. It's full of weeds, and then we forced them to clean that out a while back too, and it's obnoxiously filling back in. I don't know when it's gonna.
Believe it or not, the retention pond for that over there is underneath Burger King. Burger Shack.
Well, Burger King's is under Burger King, but Kroger's is a big pond out front that they won't keep cleaned out.
Is that a code enforcement issue? I mean. So somebody's gonna have a conversation with Kroger. How's that?
I will talk to our stormwater.
Thank you.
I think the superintendent can work with Director Meisner
Yeah.
to deal with that issue.
And maybe we just need to develop a calendar, and it's on a regular basis. Every 5 years, we go to each, or, whatever a reasonable silt accumulation schedule might
Just
be.
have some inspection calendar. We can definitely work together to implement that.
Thank you.
Back to the canal overflow plan. I've seen different parts of different developments. Is there an overall plan that I've missed out on our website, or how do we get that complete plan for the canal of what we're thinking?
Okay, so this is all lowercase, like it's not the canal, right? Because that's another thing that we answer back and forth on, and I think eventually we need to dig into that. But we are still working to get finalized information to then take what the Army Corps of Engineers has shared with us after being amended with feedback from us that maybe they missed a few data points, right?
Yep.
And then from that information, we will move into an actual design phase, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the design is not
I
done.
haven't missed it out.
No, you haven't missed it. And I think it's important to say, these are placeholders that, the administrative team has negotiated with, the developers who are coming in to basically hold that space. So if that project, comes to fruition and Army Corps of Engineers clearly shows that this would benefit, not just them, but the adjacent neighbors, then we would move forward with that, specific work. So technically, it's not a done deal, and in fact, we have it as part of our,
Agreement.
the development agreement to work with Pulte, on that one item to make sure that they have a reasonable timeline. We don't want to come in last minute saying, okay, we changed our mind, we do want it, so go ahead and tear all of that up. They basically have a timeline that we have to notify them by. So you haven't missed anything. We're still trying to orchestrate all of this, but I just wanted you to know that if there are questions you have, please ask them. If we can't answer them, we will get you answers. Okay, any questions about the stormwater utility? I know that we're moving forward with the legislation, but I just want to make sure you understand and feel comfortable with that. If you don't, please either say now or reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk with you about it. Because I know some of the folks on council now were on council when that was initially discussed, so you may have questions beyond what maybe some of your neighbors have. The next thing I wanted to share with you is I've been monitoring this electric aggregation outcome. I don't know if any of you are in charge of paying your electricity bills in your home. We saved $126.56 last month on our electricity because of the reduction in that cost. I went through and calculated based off of our average kilowatt hours for the whole year, we're gonna save about $88 a month on electricity alone. I suspect most people don't use as much electricity as we might in our home. But council, I would ask if you would be willing to look at what your average monthly use is and calculate what that differential is, or just tell me what your average usage is, then I can tell you what you saved if you did not take action and you allowed the aggregation to occur on your bill. Because I think it's important that you're able to speak to that when you're speaking with residents about what the impact of that is, especially in the context of us asking for a levy.
I know it's not the time of year, but that's electric and gas.
Yes, yeah. So I don't know impact wise what that will be. I actually haven't looked.
Well, last I knew, the gas has not been implemented yet. They were still shopping for rates.
Okay,
I thought that was the first year too.
And we approved it, but they didn't have an implemented rate. It's last I knew.
so when we learn more, we will share that. Thanks.
I'll look into that.
So I just wanted you to know you did something good. We rarely get to tell residents that they're paying less for something. So I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that along the way. And that was all I had for the mayor's report. This is the second opportunity for reserved on the agenda to hear comments from visitors. Any comments? Okay, unless otherwise noted, it's understood council members have reviewed the expense reports and have no questions. Okay, please note the upcoming meetings and events at the bottom of the agenda. And I am seeking a motion to adjourn at 7:24 p.m. Motion from Council President Wolf, a second from Council Member Porter. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mrs. Stoner.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Menard.
Yes.
Mrs. Chapman. Yes. Mrs. Porter. Yeah.
Thank you, council.